411. The prime sponsor may not be there, so I may call on one of you to just read the introduction.
Okay.
411.
Okay, we are live, Senator.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome. I am Senator James Gray, and today we will be having public hearings on House Bills 126, 164, 409, 411, and 486. Before we get started, I will read through the checklist to ensure that the meeting we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of the Senate Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which is authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom webinar for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and select legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously watch and listen to the meeting on Zoom and YouTube and via phone by following the directions and links provided on the general court website. We have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. We are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remotesenate@leg.state.nh.us or call 603-271-6931. In the event the public is unable to access due to problems on our end, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Finally, let us start the meeting by taking roll call attendance when each member states their presence. Please also state where you are and if anyone else is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. I will call the roll. Senator Birdsell.
Senator Birdsell here. I am in my home in Hampstead, and my husband is upstairs in the office, and he will be periodically coming through for his coffee.
Senator Warden.
Good morning. I am in my home in Stoddard, and I am alone in the room.
Senator Susie.
Good morning. I'm Donna Susie. I am at my home in Manchester, and I'm alone.
We expect Senator Perkins Quokka to join us soon. And I am Senator James Gray. I'm at my home in Rochester in District 6, and I'm alone in this room. All right. We have a full schedule today of 5 bills. Plus, I do want to get to executing some of the bills that we had. So the first bill, House Bill 126, if you would call on the prime sponsor to introduce the bill, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, I do not see Representative Cahill or the co-sponsor signed in. If there's anybody that is here on his behalf, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll have one of the senators introduce the bill. Nobody has yet raised their hand, so the prime sponsor is not in the session.
Okay, how many people do we have?
We only have one other speaker signed up.
Well, I was just looking at the attendees list.
Yeah, there are 12 people currently in the Zoom, in addition to the senators and staff.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to introduce House Bill 126?
That would be great, Sandra. Thank you.
For the record, my name is Regina Bertho, State Senator for District 19, which encompasses the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham. And I'm introducing House Bill 126 relative to notice of execution of tax lien to mortgages. This bill extends the time for the notice of the execution of a municipal or state tax lien to be given to a mortgage. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Thank you. Grant?
Yes, the speaker who has signed in is Becky Benvenuti, and you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am Becky Benvenuti, Government Finance Advisor for the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I'm here this morning to speak in support of HB 126. The bill provides an additional 15 days for municipalities to issue a notice of tax lien to property mortgagees. Perfecting the inherent tax lien, which does exist on all taxable properties as of April 1st each year, is a multi-step statutory process which must be undertaken with precision to protect the municipality's interest and position as a secured first priority lien holder. Each tax collector in the state is required to execute and issue tax liens to its municipality within 18 months of the April 1st assessment date for all properties that have unpaid taxes. And if this process isn't followed properly, the municipality could ultimately lose its ability to acquire a valid tax deed for properties with unredeemed tax lien 2 years later from that date. Identifying and notifying all the mortgagees by certified mail is currently required within 45 days from the date that the tax lien is executed. And the vast majority, if not all of the 234 towns and cities delegate this responsibility to the tax collector with the understanding that the tax collector in turn will work with a contracted professional abstractor to complete the mortgagee notifications. Because the tax year is the same for all towns and cities, nearly all municipalities execute their liens within the same few months each year. And that means that all properties in the state with unpaid property taxes must be researched, mortgagees identified, and the certified notices prepared and mailed within that 45-day window. Of concern in recent years is that in fact, over the past 5 to 10 years, the number of professional abstractors in New Hampshire who perform this municipal service has greatly diminished. In fact, it's my understanding that there are currently only 2 firms remaining, which are available to provide the entire state with the full service of performing the searches and generating the lien notices. I believe there are a couple of smaller firms that perform this work for some of the towns in Carroll County and one other who performs it for a limited number of towns in central New Hampshire. But with the large number of properties and the critical importance, extending the statutory mortgage notice time an additional 15 days from 45 days to 60 after tax lien execution would be extremely beneficial for all parties. And I think it's important to point out that this would still provide ample time for all mortgagees to receive notice of municipal liens and provide them with enough time to take any necessary actions to communicate with their borrowers and redeem the tax liens well in advance of any municipal tax deeding, which could occur 2 years later. Most importantly, this bill would help ensure that municipalities obtain the required perfected property tax lien on all properties with unpaid taxes. So for all those reasons, we urge the committee to vote in support of HB 126, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any of the committee members have questions? Just before we go, Senator Perkins Quokka, if you would just state where you are and whether you're alone in the room.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Senator Perkins Quokka. I'm in my home in Portsmouth and I am alone in the room.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Becky. Is there anyone from DRA on the attendees list?
We have Bruce Newer, I believe. I may be saying his name wrong. Go ahead, sir.
You can unmute yourself, Bruce. Bruce, you're still muted.
Thank you, Senator. I just found the unmute button.
All right. It hides on me too sometimes.
Yes, sir. No, DRA has no objection to this change.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else on the list? Grant?
Nobody else has signed in. If anybody else would like to speak, please raise your hand, or if you're on your phone, dial *9.
Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We have 4 minutes. Do you want to try to do an exec on this one or a different one? Do we have a motion?
I would move we go into executive session.
Second.
And a second, I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coco.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We're in executive session. Since we just heard this one, and do I have a motion on House
Consent.
Bill 126?
Move consent.
How about out to pass?
Oh,
I'll second on to pass.
okay.
Right, we have a motion. We have a motion
Second.
about to pass and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, I will call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coco,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Do I have a motion for consent? I have a motion for consent from Senator Birdsell. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
From Senator Susie? All right, any discussion? None. I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coco,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Is there anybody who wants to volunteer to take this one out?
I'll take it out.
Oh, I saw Senator Birdsell's hand first, but I'm willing to have either one. Okay, 5-0. Since I do have just a little bit of time, I do want to talk about the amendment. Is it 476 and what's going to happen there? That's Middleton, and Middleton, through an error, posted their notices 2 days late. In the past, it has been a custom that the Senate and the House would get together and would authorize the actions that took place there. And that's what you see going on. I was going to do that next Monday, but Senator Bradley has a commitment and would like to be the one that presents that. So it'll actually be a week from this Monday. So you have that. It's there. You can look it over, and if there's any problems that you see, get back to me. But it's as long as it was an error and not something done willfully or whatever, it has been the practice of the legislature to do that. So, but don't let that influence you. You make up your own mind. All right, since we're at 15 after, I think I hear a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
And a second. I will call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coco,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We are out of executive session and ready to start the hearing on House Bill 164. Grant, please call the prime sponsor.
Yes, Representative Abremi, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yep, I'm all set. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Yes,
again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good seeing you. For the record, State Rep. Pat Abrami, Rockingham 19 Stratham. I'm here to introduce House Bill 164, which passed out of House Municipal Committee 19-0 and passed on the consent calendar. And I had an identical bill last year, House Bill 1104, which again passed unanimous out of House Municipal and passed on consent last year as well, but it was a victim of COVID. Let's just put it that way in the Senate. So I refiled the bill. So what this bill does is it makes a few minor changes to RSA 41:14-A, which we feel are needed. The last time this chapter was updated was in 2008, and that was 13 years ago. Let's briefly talk about the current bill. If a town adopts, is one of those, a town can adopt statutes. If they adopt this provision currently, the select board, it says the select board shall have the authority to acquire or sell land, building, or both. However, they first must submit any such proposed acquisition or sale to the planning board or conservation commission, if they exist in the town, for review and recommendation. What happens then is that there has to be 2 public hearings that must be held. And then before the select board votes, if 50 signatures from registered voters are provided, this issue can be placed on as a town warrant for a vote by the citizens of the town. So that's the current statute. What this in talking to the Municipal Association, many towns have adopted this provision, and if 41, if not, 4111-A is the controlling statute. So if RSA 41:14-A has been adopted, it is the controlling statute in these matters. And then I did quiz the Municipal Association. They didn't have exact number of towns that have adopted this provision, just so you know. I did check with them. Okay, so what are the changes? There are 2 changes to RSA 41:14-A. It adds demolition and disposal of buildings to acquire or sell land or buildings to the statute. You say, why? Because buildings can be gotten rid of in ways that are not selling, namely demolition. And the second change is it adds the Heritage Commission to the Planning Board and Conservation Commission as reviewing bodies. And you say, why? Well, because they are the body within a town, if they have such a body, that is charged with preserving the town's heritage. And many of these buildings that we're talking about are town-owned buildings that are part of the town's heritage. So during the process last term for 1104, there were 2 amendments. Representative Julie Gilmore of the House Municipal Committee recommending adding historic districts, district commissions, if the building lies within a defined district, which passed and is part of this bill today. Rep. Gilmore of Exeter joined me as co-sponsor of this bill this year. And the second thing, last term, I had shared the bill with Cordell Johnston of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and he suggested adding the section 4, which says this act shall be effective in all towns that have previously adopted the provision of RSA 41:14-A without further action by the town. And this amendment was adopted. And both those amendments are in the current bill that you have before you. So that's what I have to say about this. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take questions, but David Canada, who should be on the Zoom, can do a better job of providing context for the reason for the bill. He was the former Stratham Select Board Chair for 9 years and longtime member and past chair of the Stratham Heritage Commission. But again, Mr. Chair, I'm willing to take questions.
Questions from the committee? Senator Bertzel.
Thank you. And thank you, Representative, for coming in. The addition of section 4, that all towns will have previously adopted, since it's, I won't say it's a significant change, but it is a change. Shouldn't they vote on that again? Or just not assume that because they've adopted the original that they're going to be following under the same?
Well, I not being an expert in municipal law, took my lead from Cordell. And hopefully if somebody from the municipal associations on the call, maybe they can help explain that better than I
Okay.
can.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from senators? Okay, thank you very much. And I guess we will go to David Canada.
Mr. Kennedy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I am David Canada, and I'm here representing the Stratham Heritage Commission. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you this morning. House Bill 164 is designed to accomplish two things by amending RSA 4114, as Representative Abrami outlined. First, it'll assure that the Heritage and Historic District Commissions, where they exist, are consulted before selectmen sell, buy, or demolish a building. The current law requires that the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission be consulted on sales and purchases, and it's logical that these other commissions be requested to comment as well. Secondly, this bill will give citizens an opportunity to bring demolition decisions of the Select Board to town meeting for consideration, just as purchases and sales may now be so considered where voters have adopted this measure. 4114A sets a pretty high bar for citizens to bring these decisions to voters. With 50 people required to put such questions on the warrant, this authority will not be used lightly or extensively. There are likely examples in many towns of buildings which are of importance to the community from a cultural point of view, but are not so important to selectmen struggling to keep a grip on the tax rate. Sometimes the cheapest solution when faced with a building of limited immediate use is to tear it down. In Stratham, we had such a case, and that's what prompted this legislation. Here, a wealthy but elderly widow, consistent with her and her late husband's wishes, bequeathed her magnificent home and landscape lot of 11 acres to the town, along with a $300,000 maintenance endowment. The terms of the bequest were very restrictive and severely limited uses for the property. About a month after the town took title, the Demolition Review Committee was advised that the selectmen had filed notice that they planned to demolish the house. The Heritage Commission went to the board and pleaded to have this decision brought to town meeting. This was in December, so it wasn't a long wait requested. Further, we pointed out that there was very little real cost to the town to wait, since only the water needed to be drained and the town's building manager could just lock the door and walk away. The selectmen refused to consider our request. So we asked for a public hearing, which was originally denied, but after a little pushback, they allowed us how the public could have half an hour at the beginning of their next meeting to express opinions. In the interim, we set up an open house where more than 100 people showed up. The clear prevailing opinion of those attending was that this house should not be destroyed. Unfortunately, the selectmen listened with closed ears. This $1 million plus house, well maintained and loved, was stuffed into dumpsters 2 months short of our 2019 town meeting. And we feel this is just plain wrong. In this case, Stratham, but it could be any place, lost a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous asset. Similar circumstances transpired in Rye just this past year, with the select board ordering the old parsonage torn down, which resulted in great public anguish. In any given situation, a community at large might agree with a selectman. But maybe, as in Stratham, the community would have traded budget considerations for keeping this beautiful building. It was probably the finest home in Stratham, undoubtedly was when it was built in 1971. But whatever the final outcome, an asset like this should have a mechanism for allowing the voters, who of course are the ultimate decision makers in any town, to have the final say. RSA 4114A, as we propose amending, is the perfect vehicle for this goal. So I ask that you please advance this bill with your positive recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions from the committee members? Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Canada. Have you guys looked into whether towns are enabled to pass demolition ordinances? I know that's something we have in Stratham, and I just didn't know if that had been explored. I mean, I didn't know if that had been explored as an alternative approach to this.
Well, there's two things there. First of all, we do have a demolition ordinance in Stratham, but it doesn't have any teeth. We can only delay the demolition by 60 days, which gives us time to try to talk the owner out of it or, suggest alternate solutions. And we've had some success at that. But typically, a select board is not bound by such ordinances. They can do as they wish. In this case, it would bring it to the voters who would have an affirmative right to overrule the selectmen.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. And I think we've got at least two more to go.
Yes, the next speaker signed up is Representative Gilman. Representative, welcome. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Representative Julie Gilman from Rockingham 18, representing Exeter. I'm also a select woman for the town of Exeter. This bill was important to me because we do have a Heritage Commission and a Historic District Commission. And I think to Senator Birdsell's question about why we shouldn't have to readopt this article because of the change is because right now, excuse me, town officials don't have to obey the state laws, and they have the opportunity to dispose of properties in what way they can. And this is also more important to me, and it was covered by Senator Abrami and Mr. Canada, is that this gives the opportunity for the public to weigh in on just these instances. There are more hearings. There is an opinion from the Historic District Commission if necessary, and the Heritage Commission if necessary. And then the two public hearings are also important. And I think the examples in the two towns that Mr. Canada gave could have made a difference in how the properties were disposed of. We find it very important, speaking for our Heritage Commission, to have the opportunity to speak to the select board about the actions they plan to take. And again, Heritage Commission is just advisory, but to get the advice of more than one board, more than the Planning Board or the Conservation Commission, who don't necessarily have the background to review property and consider its heritage to the towns that are involved. So I think that this is an important bill. I think it would be appreciated by many towns that have faced the same instance of town property being proposed for demolition, and it doesn't have enough public hearing and enough opportunities for the public to weigh in.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? All right, thank you very much. I'm told that Representative Cahill is on the line. As long as he's talking about this bill, he can come in.
Mr. Chairman, I'm terribly sorry. I wanted to talk about House Bill 126, and I must have got my dates crossed. So if you could,
Let me just give you an update on 126. It passed the committee 5-0, is also going to be put on the consent calendar. So
thank
do
you
you
very
have any
much.
comment on this bill?
No, sir. Thank you very much. That's very good news. And I will leave you to your other devices.
All right. Mr. Bossi, is there anyone else on the line for this one?
Yes, we have one more speaker signed in for House Bill 164, and that is Cordell Johnston. Mr. Johnston, go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cordell Johnston from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And we don't really have a position on the bill, but I did work with Representative Abrami on the language. He came and asked whether we would support or oppose it. And I said, and after actually a great deal of anguish over what's really a fairly small issue, we said we didn't have a position on it. We just wanted to make sure that the language made sense. So I worked with him on it. And I do think that it is a reasonable, it's really a pretty minor change to the statute to give the Historic District Commission, if the building is within a historic district, and the Heritage Commission, the ability to comment on a proposed demolition, understanding that the decision still rests with the selectmen. They just have to get the comments from these commissions. But if they all say no, don't demolish it, the selectmen still can choose to demolish it anyway. We would hope that wouldn't happen, but the decision ultimately does rest with them. So we do view it as a pretty minor change, but one that I think does make sense. And to Senator Birdsell's question on Section 4, that was something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. It's a good question, and the problem is if this passes, then you have a whole bunch of towns that have adopted this, and they don't know, unless we say in the bill, they don't know whether the new version will apply or whether the old version will apply. And we just had to clarify that one way or another. And it seemed, given that it's a fairly minor change, so there wouldn't be any confusion about that if this becomes law, that would be the law for all towns that have adopted it. So that's those are my comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does committee members have questions? I do have a question whether or not on line 27 it should be previously adopted, currently adopted, because if I adopted it and I then unadopted it previously, kind of gives me a problem there.
Okay, that's a good point. I suppose it's possible a town would have adopted it and then rescinded it. So I guess I'm not sure what the language should say.
I think that what should be done is we should give you a while to think about it, and you can email the committee members if you come up with some words that would be more exact.
This is what I get for showing up when we don't even have a position. You give me work to do.
Well, I'm sure that Representative Abrami will assist you in that. And in fact, he may even have the words that he would like you to consider.
I would be happy to come up with the words for that, and I'll send that to the committee.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak, raise your hands.
Representative Abrami has raised his hand to talk a second time.
Representative Abrami, I do restrict the second speaking to short talk, so go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I'm not going to speak very long. I'm just reacting to what Cordell had to say. If you go to if you go to lines 16 of the bill, he said that the whole reason for having a written petition of 15 registered voters presented to be able to put this on the warrant article, I think is saying that the townspeople have a final decision if we get 50 signatures, not the select board, unless I'm misreading that. And that's current statute, not change statute. So I just wanted to clarify that. It sounds like the way the current statute reads is that yes, the select board has the authority unless there are 50 signatures from registered voters to put this as a warrant article. And my guess is that warrant article is yes or no, should we knock down the building? So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Questions from committee members? Senator Bartzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative. So when you say on line 17, where it says select board prior to the select board's vote, according to provisions RSA 39:3, is that where it would say that the select board has to wait and put it on the warrant?
Yes, if there are 50 registered voters who sign a petition, then yes, 39.
Okay, so it's 39:3.
Yeah, I haven't checked that in a while, so you want to check that to make sure I'm right, but.
I will. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Additional questions? And maybe Representative Abrami can send us the answer to that along with his concurrence with Cordell's words. And I appreciate that.
Mr. Johnston has raised his hand to speak again.
Mr. Johnson.
Sorry, I want to make it clear. I agree with Representative Abrami. I don't want to make it sound like there's any disagreement here. He is right that ultimately it would the townspeople could vote. My point was in most cases it's up to the selectmen, but yeah, the voters do have that authority.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? All right. Any hands raised?
If you'd like to speak on House Bill 164, please raise your hand or dial *9. I do not have any hands raised.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing on House Bill 164 and move on to House Bill 409.
Yes, the prime sponsor is Representative Rung. Representative, welcome. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, senators, for welcoming me today. For the record, my name is Representative Rosemarie Rung. I represent Hillsborough 21, which is the town of Merrimack. I come before you to introduce House Bill 409. And like the cleaner, Formula 409, this bill is meant to clean up something that exists in statute, or more clearly, something that doesn't exist in statute that should. In RSA 671:33 describes how school districts fill vacancies. But one thing that's missing from this RSA is how to fill vacancies that exist due to, or vacancies that occur during the filing period. And as vacancies are defined in RSA 652:12, these refer to people that leave their position, not because their term is ending. That's not defined as a vacancy, but people who are in the middle of their term and they either move away from the area, they pass away, or they resign their position. How do we fill that when it occurs after the filing period has already opened? Now, in the town RSA 669:61, that's already described. If a vacancy occurs after the filing period is open, once the election is over, the new board will appoint someone to that vacancy. And that person will fill that position until the next election. And then there'll be an election for someone to be elected to serve the remainder of that term. But we do not, the towns do not allow a position to occur on the ballot, or a candidate to be on the ballot that is filing after the period is open. And I'm sorry if this sounds confusing. This happened in Merrimack last year, where we had a vacancy occur after the filing period opened for the school district budget committee. And there were people in Merrimack that wanted to appear on the ballot to fulfill that vacancy. And under the advice of the Secretary of State's office, we were told to comply with how that's described in the town statute 669, that no, do not allow someone to vie for that position by election. After the election occurs, the new body can appoint someone to fill the remainder of the term, and then have that position on the ballot for the next election. So what we want to do, and what 409 does, is fill that gap in the school district RSA so that we can define, consistent with how it's in the town RSA of 69, define how to fill a vacancy if it occurs during the filing period. So that's really all this bill does, is clean up the RSA so that we have identical language in the school district RSA as what appears in town RSA. So there's no question, it's not left to speculation how we can fill those vacancies on school district boards and committees that occur during the filing period. Anyway, I'd be happy to take any questions. I hope I didn't confuse you more. I'm gonna take some more coffee.
Senator Birdsell, you had a question.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Representative, for bringing this forward. I have a question. Because this actually happened in Hampstead not more than a month ago, where we had two positions available that two members chose not to run again. So there were two open positions. And then 1 to 2 days prior to the election, the other third school board member resigned just prior to the election. So what they did is wait until after the election and had the new school boards bring in elect a new school board. Would your bill cover someone who resigns 1 to 2 days prior to the election?
Well, that is already explained in statute, I believe. And I believe Deputy Secretary of State Scanlon is signed up to speak to this, so he could provide more information. But my bill just defines how to fill a vacancy that occurs during the filing period. Now, I believe if a school board member resigns a couple days before the election, the filing period's already closed. So that vacancy is already defined in statute as being as what happened, Senator, in your community, where this new school board appointed someone to fill that vacancy until the next election, where it will then be open. That position will be available to be filed upon by a candidate.
Follow up?
Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, so this is only during the filing period?
Correct. And the language that's in this bill is directly taken from the town statutes. So it's really just to provide consistency in a community, whether it's a town board or committee or a school board or committee, provide consistency and clarity on how we fill vacancies that occur during that period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Any of the other senators have a question? I have a question. Would it not be more accurate to say in Section 5, Roman 5, for position not to be filled during that election? I mean, if a vacancy occurs because of the death of that person after the filing period, but that's going to be voted on at that election, then I don't want to wait, you know? And this would make it sound, you know, without that precise words in there, wouldn't that add a clarification to that?
Well, thank you for your question, Senator Gray. When vacancy is used in HB 409, it's following the definition of vacancy that's in RSA 652. So it doesn't apply to people whose term is up. So let's say someone is running for, their term is up, they're running for re-election, but during the filing period, they move away, they pass away, or they just resign. That position is still, it's subject to election for anyone else on the ballot. So I don't know if I'm addressing your question, but if somebody's holding a position and their term is up and that position is on the ballot, or it's open to filing period, and during that filing period, that person who was up for re-election decides not to seek re-election, okay, that's not a vacancy under 652. That position could be filled by anyone else on the ballot. Like it'll say vote for two, not more than two people. If there are 4 people on the ballot and one of them already holds the position, it's up, and they resign or pass away, those other 3 people could fill that position if they elected. I don't know if I addressed your question or not.
Well, we'll listen to the rest of the speakers, and then if I have an additional question at the end, I can always ask.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other, Senator Bertzel?
Sorry. I just have one question, because I guess what I was getting confused about was it says any vacancy which occurs between the beginning of the filing period and the district election. So I was thinking from the beginning of the filing period to the actual town municipal election, not just that short filing period.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Well, even that already exists in statute. Even if we said to the end of the filing period, if 409 passes, that vacancy would be filled the same. Even if it doesn't pass, that vacancy between the filing period and the election it's already defined. That would already be filled by appointment after the election, and then be subject to an election for the remainder of the term at the next opportunity to do so.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Secretary Scanlon could provide more clarity on that, but thank you for your question.
All right, seeing no other questions, and since Deputy Secretary Scanlon has his hand up, we might as well bring him in.
Mr. Scanlon, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Grant. I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm David Scanlon, Deputy Secretary of State, and here in support of House Bill 409, because it really just clarifies the school district statute in a way that we already understand the law to take place. The provisions already exist in statute on how to fill a vacancy, and this bill just addresses the timing of when that occurs. The corresponding statute in the town section is in RSA 669:61 in Roman numeral 3. And I'll read the last sentence of that, and you can follow on the language in House Bill 409 for Roman numeral 5, so that you can see that it's consistent. The language in the town vacancy statute says, any vacancy which occurs between the beginning of the filing period and the town election shall not be filled by official ballot until the annual town election the following year. So it's the same language. It just replaces town with district, meaning school district. The reason for this change and the reason that it reflects what's in the town statute is that there has been a filing period that has taken place. And that is done with proper notice to voters. If a vacancy occurs because an individual passes away, or they move out of the district, or they resign prior to the filing period, this does give opportunity for some notice to interested individuals in the town that may want to run for the office. If you allow people to sign up for a vacancy that occurs during the filing period, it does create an opportunity for games to be played, especially in terms of resignations and things like that, on when that occurs and when somebody signs up. If it's, let's say if it's done at the last minute, at the very end of the filing period. So this is designed to give people at least some notice if the vacancy occurs before the filing period opens up. If it occurs after, this language says that there will be a vacancy that is filled by the appointing authority. In this case, it would be the school board, which would serve until the election of the following year. And at that time, candidacies, the filing period would be opened up to fill the remainder of the unexpired term. It's kind of a long-winded explanation of this. In my opinion, this is a really simple thing, and I don't want to complicate it. I think it's pretty straightforward. Again, consistent with the town statutes and consistent with the understanding that we have had for years on, how vacancies should be filled and the timing of that taking place. So I would be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Barrett, Christina?
There we go. You should be able to speak, Mr. Christina.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Bossy. Thank you, Chairman Gray and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Barrett Christina. I'm the Executive Director of the New Hampshire School Boards Association. I don't have anything to add specifically to the language of the bill, other than to just come and clarify the record. NHSBA did oppose House Bill 409 when it was in House Ed for no other reason than we weren't quite sure of the intent or what the purpose of the bill was. However, after speaking with Representative Rung and hearing Attorney Scanlon's testimony at House Ed, I just wanted to be on the record as saying NHSBA does support the bill. We don't see any problems with it. So more than anything, I just wanted to clarify the record that we're in support of it and we're switching our position from where we were in the House. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions? All right, Grant, I think we've got another representative.
Yes, Representative Heinrich, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, I'm not a representative. I'm the Merrimack School District Clerk. And I asked Representative Rung to file this legislation. The big problem was that for Senator Birdsell, the problem was a vacancy that occurred during filing period. And I was inundated with requests to open that seat and put it on the ballot since it was during filing period. And this was problematic for me because the person that died was my husband and I'm the clerk. So I was told that people had called the Secretary of State's office and that the Secretary of State's office had said there was a gray area in the school law. And when I called them, I will tell you that they can't advise us because they're not our attorney, but I did speak with the school's attorneys and they suggested that we hold the seat off and let the seat election happen. And then after the election, we would fill the seat according to statute, which is the committee filled it. But the problem was simply because the filing period was open, there were people that thought we should put it on the ballot. We did not. We let the committee fill it. However, that's basically what this is all about, and the statute is silent on it. So I asked her to put the language that's in the state, that's in the town election law into the school election law to cover it. Because the ballots hadn't been printed. And that's where this all came about. Well, since the ballots haven't been printed, why can't you just add it? I mean, the budget committee could meet and they could tell you to put it on the ballot. It was a really interesting time, but filing period opened on Wednesday. My husband died on Friday. Deliberative session was the following Tuesday. It was a really, really interesting time. But the point of all of this is when I talked with the Secretary of State's office, they said just exactly what deputies, in fact, he's the guy I talked to. It just seemed to me two things. Number one, it has happened before. And number two, it shouldn't happen again. So thank you for your consideration of this.
All right. Questions from the committee members? Seeing none, thank you. Grant?
That is all we have signed in. If anybody else would like to speak on House Bill 409, please raise your hand or dial *9. And I have no raised hands.
Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on 409 and open the public hearing on 411. And we'll give everybody a minute to get set.
I do not see the the prime sponsor of this bill signed in. If you're here, please raise your hand.
If there's anyone who is representing the representative, you raise your hand also. And other than that, we'll have somebody from our committee introduce the bill.
Mr. Sansucci has raised his hand, but I think to speak, no, he's lowered his hand, so not to introduce the bill.
Okay, Senator Birdsell, you did so well on the last one. Would you introduce the bill?
For the record, my name is Regina Birdsell, State Senator for District 19, which is the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham, and I'm here to introduce House Bill 411. This bill establishes a commission to study the equalization rate used for the calculation of a property tax abatement. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Let me get to the sign-in sheet and just take a quick look here. All right. Who do we have on there for representatives?
We have no representatives signed in that I can see. We have 3 members of the public who wish to speak.
All right, and I'm going to pick Cordell Johnson to speak.
He is not signed in. He is on the line.
Well, Cordell, would you like to give us at least a little overview and your opinion of the bill?
Actually, no. I signed in support of the bill, but Mr. Sansucci knows a lot more about the subject than I do, so I would defer to him.
All right, and we'll bring George in, and I haven't seen you in a long time, George.
Mr. Sansucci, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Am I unmuted, Mr. Chairman?
You are live and in person here.
Pleasure to see you again, Mr. Chairman, and everybody from the committee. It's my honor to be able to speak in behalf of Troy Murner on this bill. This bill seeks to establish a study commission similar to what we had done in House Bill 700 to address a very esoteric issue that actually has become extremely problematic. And the issue is simple, but not necessarily simple to explain, and I'll do my best. We did send around a 2-page memo and a table to try to help explain this particular issue. The issue is simply that the equalization rate that's established by the Department of Revenue Administration that's used to set the tax rate in 1 year on the MS1 is called the tentative rate, and it is based on sales the previous year. When an appeal is filed the following year, in September of the following year after the tax rate is set, the final equalization rate is developed by the state based on the sales in the calendar year before, which was not known because the DRA does not finish the sales and then do the equalization rate before the MS1 goes out. So let's say, for example, you have a 90% equalization rate and the taxes are set on the MS1 form based on 90%, and then the county apportionment and the school district apportionment is set by equalizing the entire town up to 100%. And then you have that's based on sales that are a year old at that time. The final equalization rate for sales in the year of the tax rate that's set comes in about March or April of the following year. And for the appeal, let's say that equalization rate comes in at 80%. The market's going up and the central level of assessment is holding so that all houses and property is only assessed at 80%. What happens at that point is the BTLA uses the 80% to establish the value in an appeal, which means that the town has to demonstrate the value is 20% higher than its assessment as opposed to 10% higher the previous year. And it creates essentially automatic abatements because of that lag. In the most recent case of 95 communities with public service, those automatic, what we call equalization rate abatements totaled approximately $256 million of reduced value. And the remaining towns that didn't settle during that case, the number is in the table. It's about $128 million worth of value that abatements were paid on that were out of the control of the selectmen. So that a person who files an appeal gets to use an equalization rate that anyone who has not filed an appeal is not paying taxes on, and will get to collect abatements based on the new rate, which is not based the amount of taxes that they paid on. So there's an inequity that has been developed, and it became extremely focused in the last big public service case. But any major properties that any town has, or major houses or these sorts of things, this happens every time there is an appeal that goes forward, that it's set on the second year's equalization rate that was not known. And it upsets the balance of the budget, where they'll run a budget deficit as a result of it. So the whole goal of this is to build a consensus through a subcommittee. I believe the ASB is on it as one of the members. There's a number of different subcommittee people to build a consensus on how to correct this, so that if you file an abatement and an appeal, the final decision is based on the taxes you paid and not the equalization and the value based on the year afterwards. So you're abating and you're paying against the taxes you paid. The budget stays intact and you don't receive anything in extra. Now, one could certainly argue that when the market is dropping, then the person filing the appeal gains, has to pay or would get less. That's true. But if you look at the table I provided you, and you look at the blue section, in the public service case, the negative, the positive equalization rate, column D, only $23 million of value was basically affected by a market that was actually dropping and not rising. And 128 million was affected by a market that was rising, where extra value and extra abatement was paid by the towns. So it does cut both ways, but the dropping market is far less prevalent than a rising market in the state of New Hampshire. Other states have addressed this. We don't need to get into it. because it is an inequity and there are many ways to address it. I'm not proposing what way. I just think that we should, if we can possibly have a commission that can study this and come to a consensus, we can correct this deficiency and inequity in the system. And I'm asking you to consider a study commission to do so.
All right. Are there any questions from the senators? Okay, George, thank you. And we have, according to my list, we have one more in support and one more in opposition. We'll take the support first and let the opposition sum up all the points at the end.
Jarrell Lucas, you should be able to unmute yourself. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. Please know that my registration was solely for the purpose of any technical difficulties that Mr. Sansucci would have had. Therefore, I'll defer all testimony previous to what he has already stated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to Rosenberg. Ms. Rosenberg.
Teresa, you should be able to unmute yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I unmuted, Grant?
You are unmuted.
Great, thank you. Good morning, members of the committee and Mr. Chair, Teresa Rosenberger. I'm from the law firm of Bernstein Schuer, and I'm here representing the New Hampshire Telephone Association, as well as Pennachuck Water. I'm not really opposing the bill. I would respectfully ask, if you are going to pass it, that you amend it, and please put a business member on the commission and possibly a utility member. As Mr. Sansucci knows, we spent how many years, Skip? 4, 5, 6, working on a formula for the standardization of utility property as it's taxed. And we first dealt with the telecom industry, then water, gas, and electric. And the legislature came up with formulas that actually are working. And to be perfectly honest, we are seeing a lot less court cases than we were before. In that process, we worked with the Assessing Standards Board, but also there were commissions in the legislature, but those commissions had representation from the municipalities and the assessors, as this one does, but also the BIA was on the commission. And the last one, which really tackled electric, water, gas totally, had utilities on it as well. It had water, gas, and electric on the, actually water wasn't in the, gas and electric on the commission. So I'm only asking, if you're going to pass it, if you would add a few more members. And in the past, they've also had members of the public. The public members here, though, as you see, are all appointed by the Muni Association. So we just like business representation on the commission. That's all. That's my, you didn't give me a chance on the card to sign up as neutral asking for an amendment. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. I will put you in charge of getting with Mr. Soucy and suggesting the language for the additional members. Okay. Our comments from the board, or I should say the senators, questions? Seeing none, we'll expect your email soon. Anyone else who wants to speak?
If you would like to speak on House Bill 411, please raise your hand or dial *9. And I have no raised hands.
And seeing that, we'll close the public hearing on Senate Bill 411. All right. And I think that we've got 6 minutes before our next bill. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Move to go into exec.
We have a motion going to executive session.
Second.
We have a second. I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell?
Yes.
Senator Ward?
Yes.
Senator Soucy?
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We're in executive session. All right.
I'm presuming we can take the last two bills out. Because they're
The
going to
last-
need amendments, correct?
I've got 411 needs an amendment that Ms. Rosenberg is going to work with Mr. Sansucci on. On 164, I've got an amendment that we're looking at the word previously enacted to be more precise in that. And 409.
No, I'm wrong. It wasn't. I thought it was the last two, but
I think I didn't have an amendment marked down for 409.
No.
yeah, no, it
Ought to pass on 409 and really clean things up.
I'll
We have
second.
a motion of ought to pass by Senator Susie, a second by Senator Birdsall. Is there any discussion on 409?
I love
Seeing
that
none,
number.
I will call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Do I have a further motion?
Move consent.
And Susie moves consent. Senator Birdsall seconds. Is there any? Well, there wouldn't be any discussion on this one anyway. Call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And we have volunteer to take it out.
Volunteer, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Susie. Okay. We have House Bill 64 was heard at the last meeting. That one was payments in lieu of taxes.
I move off to pass.
I'll second that.
We have a motion of ought to pass in a second. Okay, do we have any discussion? All right, I will call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And we have a motion for consent.
Consent.
So moved and seconded.
Second.
Yes. Okay. And we'll call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. And do we have a volunteer to take it out?
I'll take it out.
Senator Ward. House Bill 79 on the health officer. I had no objections to that bill. Do we have a motion on House Bill 79?
Ought to pass.
I have a motion of ought to pass. Do we have a second? Second by Senator Birdsall. Do we have discussion on the health officer bill? Okay, we'll call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Do I have a further motion?
Move consent.
We have a motion and a second for consent. Okay, Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and chair votes yes. Do I have volunteer to take this one out? Senator Perkins Quokka.
Got it.
Do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second,
I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So we are back in regular session and we should be ready for House Bill 486. Do we have the prime sponsor?
Yes, the prime sponsor is Representative Fellows. Welcome. You should be able to unmute yourself.
So I just did
We
unmute
can
myself.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Is it possible to be promoted?
Grant?
I can with your permission, Mr. Chairman. Representative, you've been promoted to a panelist.
Thank you. If I do run into a problem with my internet connection, which sometimes happens, it gets unstable, I'll just shut my video off because that helps a little bit. So good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Representative Sally Fellows. I live in Holderness, and I'm here to present a bill that makes changes to the low and moderate income homeowners property relief program. And do you have copies of the testimony and the chart that I emailed to the committee a couple of days ago?
I
I
do.
believe that it's all available on our website.
Oh, okay.
I
So,
have
would you like me to cover everything, or if you've had a chance to read my testimony, I can just go over the high points of it?
The high points would be good for me. If any of the other senators want more, they will ask for it.
Okay. So I think I'm assuming that you understand what the program does. It gives a rebate to the low income homeowners, and what is rebated is the statewide education property tax. And this program has no impact at all on local taxes, and it has no relationship at all to local income, local property tax exemptions. This is an important program intended to help low-income people, many of whom are senior citizens, remain in their homes, but it's in danger of disappearing. In the first 5 years of in the first year of the program, which was 18 years ago, 10% of the homeowners applied for a rebate. Last year, only 1.5 applied. And in the first year, that was 27,000 households that received a rebate that totaled $10.5 million. And since then, participation has slowly dropped by 80%. In 2019, there were only about 7,000 people participating, and last year it was less than 6,000 people. And the total rebate and now is less than $1 million. So there are a couple of reasons for the decline in usage of this program over the past 18 years. In the beginning, the maximum rebate was almost $500. And that was 18 years ago. So that was a significant amount of money. And the average rebate that people received that year was $280. Last year, the maximum they could receive in a rebate was $183. That's 64% less. And the average rebate was about $150. Now, what will happen next year, which is not going to be impacted by this bill because the impact of this bill isn't until the year after next. The next year, the maximum rebate will be $160. So it's less lucrative for people to apply for it because the maximum is 160 and some people will get less than that. The 20% of 160, which is the lowest rebate category, is $32. So you can see why people are not using it that much. Another reason that it has shrunk is because the state property tax base has expanded over 20 years. So that when that happens, because the statewide property tax is a specific amount of money that is raised every year, it's $363 million. And that has not changed in at least 16 years. It's fixed in statute to raise $163 million. And when property values go up across the state and you're raising the same amount of money, the tax rate goes down. So the tax rate has dropped, but that doesn't mean that the statewide education property tax bills are less because property values have gone up. So the rate drops, but the value goes up. And over the course of this program, essentially what has happened is property values have doubled. And for that reason, the rates have gone down, the values have gone up. The bills are actually about the same amount per household. So, but the rebate has shrunk because there is a cap in the current bill that says the rebate only applies to the first $100,000 of property value. And the house 20 years ago that had a value of $200,000 now is probably worth about $400,000. So instead of getting the rebate applying to half of the value of your home, now it's only applying to a quarter of the value of your home. So that's why this program needs to be updated. Let's see. And there is a third element in play here, that the income limits have not changed. So people's incomes obviously have increased over the last 20 years. And so fewer and fewer people are qualifying for those caps. I mean, a single person to have an income under $12,000 a year, that is very, very low. So what I have done in this bill is I have updated those elements. I've updated I've changed the income limits, and I've changed the value, the cap on the amount of the property that is eligible for the rebate. And I did that I use census data that can tell me what's the median home value in New Hampshire and how that's changed over the past 20 years. And I have data that tells me how many homeowners there are in New Hampshire and their owner-occupied homes and how their household income falls into different income ranges. So what I tried to do using that census data is just bring the existing program up to match what the current statistics tell me. And so I'm trying to essentially move this program into the future. I did make one change other than that. The original bill says that the income limit for a two-person household is twice as much as a single person, but I used poverty, the limits that the Census Bureau uses when they look at poverty. And I saw that the poverty figures for a two-person household is actually something like 280. Oh, I can't remember. I have notes on it, but anyway, what I did is I made the difference between single and two-person household line up with the income comparison when you look at the poverty limits. So if without change, the maximum rebate when we get to 2021 tax bills will be probably in the range of $160. And updating this bill, the updates in this bill will move that maximum up to $350, and it will also make more people eligible. So when I did these calculations, I did not take into account the changes in property values due to COVID and the boom in the home sale market, which has been significant. And I didn't do that because I based all of my calculations on census data, and that census data, it's not available yet. 2019 is the most recent year that I can use. So I'm hoping that you will look on this bill favorably. It helps people who are low income, particularly seniors, who want to stay in their home, but it's difficult, when you're retired and you're on a fixed income. So I'm hoping that you'll be agreeable to this bill. So
All right.
if you have any questions?
Do the senators have any questions? Senator Ward.
Yes, probably for clarification. In your written testimony on paragraph 2, line 4, you said I thought you said received 10.5 million.
No.
And then your written testimony says 7.5.
Are you asking about the first year of the program, how much money they got in the first year?
In the first year rebates for 2003 tax bills, 27 households received 7.5 million in rebates.
Correct.
And I thought I heard you say 10.5 million.
Oh, if I did, I misspoke. It's definitely 7.5.
Okay, thank you.
It will also be on that chart.
Senator Perkins Coca.
Yes, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Fellows. It seems like you've done a lot of work on this, and we're all grateful for that. Did you work with any organizations or advocacy organizations in developing this, or was it based on a template from previous years? You've obviously done your research. I was just curious if there were collaborators.
So thank you for that question. I worked at the Department of Education for 30 years, and I retired a couple of years ago. And part of my job there was adequacy aid. So I was very familiar with the statewide property tax. One of the other things I did is there's a element of setting tax rates for cooperative districts that the Department of Education is involved in. So I understood how that the property tax, and I'm also really wonky when it comes to spreadsheet and seats, and I love data, and I love data about students and income, and I was a census taker for 2 seasons. So I just looked at it from a technical point of view to develop this bill. But the reason I wanted to do it is because I have constituents who just tell me, paying their property tax bill is very difficult, and it's hard for them to stay in their homes. So this was something that I had expertise that I could work on. And so that's why I worked on this. I did not work with any particular organization.
Additional questions from any of the senators? Thank you very much for your testimony. I think we have one more representative on the line.
I did just want to say one thing, that I do have my own, since I use this data and I'm familiar with the programs, I do have an estimate on what it might cost. So I don't know where that comes into play, if you're interested in hearing that, or if that needs to be, I don't know how to approach finance for that. So can I share it with you?
I believe that the FN report talks briefly to it, but says that they'll, because of the statute saying that, you know, it's a fixed dollar amount raised, that, but yes, quickly, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm confident that it would not cost more than $6 million a year. And my best estimate, it would be somewhere between 4 and 5 million a year. Did I say six? So that's what I'm thinking for the cost. So thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you. And next up is Representative Waltz. Hold on, I clicked the wrong person. And there's Representative Waltz. You should be able to unmute yourself. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Senator Gray, nice to see you again. I was with you yesterday as it worked out.
There you go.
I signed on to this bill because I was just taken with the whole idea behind it. I thought, what a great piece of public policy. And I think it's particularly appropriate when it comes to seniors, who are 18% of the people in this state. And we know that our seniors are struggling to stay in their homes, particularly as home values are going up. And we also know that that is the most efficient way to take care of seniors, that they can stay in their own home, they can live there, and they can receive end-of-life care there. And something as small as this, which probably is small, we're talking a few $100s, can actually make a huge difference to somebody on a limited income. But specifically with respect to seniors, we know that leaving them in their home, in the long run, it costs less, they're more comfortable. It actually slows memory loss, which surprised me. It strengthens their social network, being able to stay in the world they're accompanied, and it helps them retain their dignity, that they have their own independence and they have self-determination. So those are great policies, all of which in the long run save us money. We also know that, as Representative Fellows mentioned, that the changes in this bill are quickly being outpaced by what's happened to the real estate market during the pandemic. We know that real estate has increased overall in the state 20% in the last year, kind of a mind-boggling number. Every time I look at the value of my house, I look at it in disbelief, not believing I could really get that much money for it. And given that, you might even in the Senate want to increase the house values in here. In this bill, it increases it to $220,000 a year. You may want to up it to $240,000 or $250,000 a year to reflect the change in the market, so that people really would get a meaningful lift from this. Even with this bill, we're talking about a maximum of $350 a year that people would benefit from this, as opposed to the $500 a year that they would have gotten 18 years ago. So the benefit is not as great as the bill originally imagined. And I think increasing the house value a little bit more might increase the benefit some. I want to let you know that this bill sailed through the House. It came through the committee bipartisan 19-0 and was on the consent calendar. It is a low cost to the state with a very high return. It can retreat, not having something like this can lead to homelessness. It can lead to increased medical costs for people when they have to move, both physical and psychological problems from the loss of their home and from having to come into a new environment. Sometimes small things can make a big difference in people's lives and in the cost of the state. And I think this bill is a prime example of a small change with a large impact. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from senators? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we'll move on to who's next on the list.
Next on the list is Jeff McClinch. Mr. McClinch, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Oh,
hold on. I think I just accidentally muted him. And there, he's back in, and you should be, there you go.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Well, Chairman Gray, Senator Soucy, and members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to appear before you this morning for For the record, my name is Jeff McClinch, and I'm the project director of the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project, a nonprofit organization that seeks to educate citizens and policymakers about the system New Hampshire uses to fund its public schools, to build awareness of the shortcomings of that system, and to advocate for changes in law to make that system more equitable for students and taxpayers alike. As the bill before you this morning, House Bill 486, would make real progress in improving taxpayer equity, the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project strongly supports the bill and urges the committee to recommend it as ought to pass. As members of this committee are aware, one simply cannot discuss New Hampshire's tax system without talking about the property tax. Indeed, the property tax is far and away the largest tax collected in New Hampshire, generating close to $4 billion to support state and local public services in 2019, well in excess of any other form of taxation levied in our state. Yet the property tax is also an unfair tax, as it places far greater responsibility on low and moderate income taxpayers than it does on more affluent ones. According to data from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, the poorest 20% of New Hampshire households, and these were households with incomes under $27,000, they paid 6.2% of their incomes in property taxes in 2018. In contrast, the wealthiest 1% of households, all of whom had incomes in excess of $515,000, they paid an effective property tax rate of just 1.9%, so a ratio of roughly 3 to 1. Now, despite its heavy reliance on the property tax, and in turn, that tax's heavy toll on the least well-off, New Hampshire does precious little to mitigate the impact of the tax on those struggling to make ends meet. The state's principal approach to the property tax relief and the focus of this bill, the low and moderate income homeowners property tax relief program, has all been evaporated in recent years. And Representative Fellows shared the data on that dilemma with you, so I won't belabor the point. I would just simply seek to emphasize that the bill seeks to reverse the trends that she described and to aid New Hampshire homeowners facing financial hardship. More specifically, if enacted into law, the bill would both increase the number of homeowners eligible to participate in the program and the value of the rebates it would receive. It would increase the number of folks taking part by raising income thresholds that haven't been adjusted in nearly 2 decades, and would raise the value of those rebates by increasing the limit on the assessed value used to determine those rebates. And again, Representative Fellows provided the details on the bill, so I don't want to consume more of your time. Now, in bolstering property tax relief, House Bill 486 is consistent with one of the key recommendations offered by the recent commission to study school funding. As the members of the committee may know, that commission met for much of last year, despite the pandemic, and received hours of input from school finance officials, tax administrators, academic experts, and members of the public. They examined our school property tax system at length, and after doing so, recommended that, among other changes, and I'll just quote from the report here, the state should enhance taxpayer equity through property tax relief targeted to homeowners and renters through a low and moderate income property tax relief program. This program should include updated limits to income, home value, and net worth, and be satisfactorily funded by the state. Finally, at the present time, the legislature is actively considering a number of changes in tax law intended to spur economic growth and to ease the difficult economic situations many families now face due to the pandemic. Any effort to use New Hampshire's tax system to achieve those ends should start with property tax relief along the lines of House Bill 486. This bill would put more money in the pockets of Granite Staters still coping with the economic consequences of the pandemic, and thus allow them to shop and spend at local businesses striving to remain open. For these reasons, I once again urge the committee to recommend House Bill 486 as ought to pass, and I look forward to working with all of you to make New Hampshire's tax system more fair for everyone, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have this morning. Thank you.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we have at least one more on the list.
We have one more person signed up, Theodore Boson, but I do not see him in the session. If he or anybody else would like to speak on House Bill 486, please raise your hand or dial *9. Representative Perez has asked to speak.
Representative.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Representative Perez. I represent District 23 in Milford. I'm here to speak in support of this bill, not more than any time our homeowners they need assistance. We see the economic impact with it COVID-19, and our homeowners, they're suffering a lot. They having a hard time paying for the mortgages, and this tax relief will help a lot of my constituents to stay in their houses, especially that older generation who's trying to stay in their homes and not be pushed to be live in our communities. So I urge you to support this bill because we need it and we need it now. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Questions from committee members? Seeing none. Do we have any other hands up, Grant?
We do not have any more hands raised on this bill.
Then I close the public hearing on House Bill 486. And I think I hear a motion to go into executive session.
To executive session.
And a second, yes,
Second.
Senator Birdsall. And I will call the roll. Senator Birdsall,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We're in executive session. House Bill 46, do I hear a motion?
Move on to pass.
I have a motion of ought to pass on House Bill 46. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Discussion.
So I think this is a good bill. I think it does important policy things, including keeping some of our homeowners in their homes and providing them with tax relief. It's always hard because we're always balancing when it comes to tax relief, different groups against each other. And so, but this is a group that's very much in need. And so I think it's a good bill that I plan to support.
The comment that I have is certainly some of these numbers need to be updated. I just want the rest of the senators to think about that when we get into some of the other bills that were coming up, is that when we put a dollar figure into state law and 5, 10, 15 years goes by, sometimes those numbers need to be updated. So any further discussion?
I would just add, I think Representative Fellows, through her explanation, provided a lot of good technical basis by which she did increase the numbers. So I think they're sound, and I think it would behoove all of us to vote for this bill.
Yeah, I agree with Senator Susie. Representative Fellows did a dynamite job on the numbers, and God bless her for being a numbers person.
I did just get a question about whether we should tie this to poverty level or anything. I don't think that's appropriate this year. If somebody wants to take that on in future years to tie it to something. But again, I'll open it up for you guys to comment.
I think for the time being, we should leave it as is.
All right. Seeing no other discussion, we'll call the roll. Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Do we have a further motion?
Consent.
Second.
Senator Ward moves consent, seconded by Senator Birdsall. I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Do I have somebody who wants to take it out?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Senator Susie.
I have a lot of consent blurbs to write.
But you have more time than usual.
I thought the consent blurbs were easier than the floor blurbs.
They are, as long as you all agree to them and just, in the back.
All right, all right. Going back, House Bill 88.
And Senator Gray, I don't know if you wanted to look at it, but Cordell already sent the change to 164 and Representative Abrami has agreed to it. So if you wanted to take that up later.
Okay. We move it from one pile to the other here. House Bill 88. Is there any comments on the restructuring of the police commission?
I move ought to pass.
Second.
We have a motion and a second of ought to pass.
Believe it was, I believe this is the one that was voted on by the people additionally. So, I'm not gonna, this was the voice of the people. So I think we should move. I think it's a good bill.
Okay, any other comments? All right, motion is ought to pass, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I was moving things around, doing other things, so I claim the senior moment here. And all right. So we'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Do I have a further motion?
Move consent. Second.
Okay. Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka. And the chair votes yes. I saw your mouth move. There was a glitch hearing the yes, but the chair votes yes, so it's on the consent calendar. Do I have anybody that wants, Senator Birdsell wants to take this one out? Okay. Okay. House Bill 101. And we do have an amendment on that. Amendment is 1121S.
Yep.
Okay. We'll get a motion of ought to pass first.
So move.
All right. I have a motion of ought to pass by Senator Birdsell, seconded by the chair. All right, Senator Ward, either one. All right,
Sure.
now I will introduce the amendment 1121S. And what the amendment does is change 45 days to 90 days to give them a little additional time. Do I ought to pass on the amendment? Do I have a second?
Second.
Senator Ward, do we have any discussion on the amendment?
No.
Okay, we'll call the roll on the amendment. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes on the amendment. And we're back to the main motion, ought to pass on the bill as amended. Any further discussion? Call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka. I don't even see your picture.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and the chair votes yes. Does somebody want to move consent?
So moot.
Second.
And we have a motion and second for consent. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka. I saw her mouth move even though she is muted.
I'm sorry. Yes.
And the chair votes yes on consent. And I will take this one out.
I'm sorry, who is taking out 126?
Let me go back and look.
That
I
would
don't
be-
have anybody listed on my sheet on
I
126.
don't either. Oh, Senator.
I think I volunteered.
Oh, okay.
Senator Birdsell volunteered. All right.
Oh, I wasn't the only
Sheets
one.
right here.
If I forgot any, then the chair volunteers to take out any he's forgotten.
126 is Senator Birdsall.
Okay. The next one on my list was the House Bill 284, and we have an amendment 1124S, and I would entertain a motion of ought to pass.
So moved.
Have Senator Ward, and I'll second it. Okay, now I will introduce the amendment. Amendment 1124S, which takes out the date but leaves in the part of that sentence that says that the requests are to go to the body.
Wait, which one are we on? I'm sorry.
We're on 284.
Oh, okay. I was on 164. I'm like, wait a minute. You have the amendment already. Okay.
We'll get back to 164 in just a second. So do I have a second on the amendment? All right, we've got multiple seconds on the amendment. And any further discussion on the amendment? The Tom Thompson and I forget who else did agree with the amendment, does the same thing as the bill. And again, I just want to leave in that part of the sentence that tells them where to put the request when they want the lots unmerged. So.
Yeah, I thought that was a good change, Chairman, because I know, these can be complicated. So.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll call the roll on the amendment. Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coker.
Yes.
The chair votes yes on the amendment. Now we're back to the bill. Ought to pass as amended now. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coker.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Do I have a motion for consent?
Consent.
Second.
Motion for consent and the second. We'll call the roll. Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Coker.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And since I wrote the amendment, I'll take this one out too. All right. 164, I hear we've got some modifying language. Could you put that up on the screen if you could?
Yes, I can. Let me just get it here. Okay. Can you see it now?
You need to make it bigger for old people like me.
Okay. Hang on one second. Okay.
Be effective to all towns in which the provision of RSA 41:14A without further, okay, so the act shall be effective to all towns in which the provisions of RSA 41:14-A have previously been adopted and remain in effect without further action by the town.
Okay, since we have two attorneys on the committee here, questions, comments from them?
Senator Susie's still trying to read.
No, I'm just looking at where the insertions are going. Just to understand. Seems to work.
Senator Perkins Coker?
Yeah, seems to work to me too.
Okay.
Tricia, you got that?
Yep.
For a committee amendment? Okay.
All right, assuming, or I'll take a motion of ought to pass on the bill. Senator Bertzel moves ought to pass. Do we have a second to ought to pass on the bill?
Yes, I'll second.
Senator Susie seconds the, all right. Now we'll go to the amendment, a committee amendment. We've just seen it on the screen. Do I have a motion on the committee amendment?
Ought to pass.
Ought to pass, and a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on the committee or amendment? We'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Now we're back to the bill as amended. Ought to pass. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, Senator Bertzel,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Do I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second.
Motion for consent and a second. And I'll call the roll. Senator Bertzel,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Anybody want to take this one out?
I'll take it out.
Who said that?
Senator
Oh.
Ward.
Senator Ward. All right.
Good job.
That is all I know that we're ready for.
That's everything
Just-
but one.
Yeah.
Just a word of caution to you. We still do have a number of bills, and unlike the bills that we've done in the last couple of sessions, they will get much more discussion. We've got discussion. And so, although we'll try to keep the number down a little bit, just be prepared that the sessions may be a little more lengthy and a little more interesting, shall we say. And remember that on 476, that there will be two notices in there for that, the original bill, and because we want to have the public hearing on the second one so that it is germane to the original bill without any question, it will be separately noticed in the calendar right next to each other.
Mr. Chairman, that was the town of Milton issue?
Middleton,
Middleton, I'm sorry. Yeah.
right. It's in the amendment. You'll see it there. All right. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Just have a question. Do we have the, in the OneDrive, I'm looking through it. Do we have the list of bills? Like the master sheet?
Yep, it should be right in that first, when you first go into the OneDrive.
Oh, got it. Okay. And that's pretty much up to date with everything that we've gotten so far.
Yes, and I will update it today with all the votes that we just did.
Okay.
And I'll send it out to you all.
All right.
Along with the blurbs that you all can approve.
Thanks.
All right. So is there any other business for executive session right now?
Move we come out of executive session.
We have a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
And I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Senator Ward, second by Senator Susie. I'll call the roll. Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Ward,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka. I saw her lips move, but I didn't hear her.
Oh, you didn't hear me? Yes.
There must be a glitch somewhere between your computer and mine. And the chair
Yeah.
votes yes. And thank you, ladies, for putting up with me and Grant. I know that. And have a nice day.
Yes.
You too.
You too.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Care, everyone.